Brian Daboll needs to finally coach up his football team, and I think that this is the best stage to do it because I don't think that there's anybody in football that knows the Buffalo Bills more than Brian Daboll. Now, if Brian Daboll cannot do that, I am of the mindset at this point that we just overstated what Brian Daboll was. Like, you gotta do something here. I mean, we've talked about the offensive line day in and day out. Daniel Jones, this, that. Can we look at that, Coach, a little bit? You're 14.5-point dogs. I got it. You've been rolled from the first snap of the season. And Brian Daboll, to me, is responsible for this.
But
what?
But this week, like, I'm not going to disagree as far as saying this is look, Daboll's been awful, and you're right, getting rolled every week is a problem, and it's a reflection of the head coach. But do you really think the Giants are going to be able to compete Sunday night against the Bills with no quarterback, no offensive line, no running back? Like, it's one thing for me to make excuses prior to the quarterback going down, but on top of that now, with their schedule, with the injuries to the offensive line, with Saquon Barkley being out, and now with likely having to go with Tyrod Taylor Sunday night, like, how are you gonna judge Daboll? Let's say they lose this game by 35 points. What are you going to say on Monday?
I'm going to say that Brian Daboll has had zero impact on the season positively. That is because at that point, if that's the score, right, Sal, in that area, the Giants will have been rolled in every single game that they played, and the rolling started from the first snap of the season. I got to look at the coach. I mean, I'm sorry. And it works both ways here. It works both ways. When you're overachieving, listen, we went through this with Buck Showalter through this year. When you have a really good season, the platitudes come flying in. Coach of the Year conversation. Is he the next Parcells? And that was with merit. When you look this inept, they are inoperable. They can't even function on the most, or at least have not thus far, the most basic NFL level. I'm sorry. I'm not looking past the coach anymore.
Yeah.
You got to show me something here.
I understand it. Look, I understand. He does have to start showing us something. I just... Like, can we wait 1 week until it's the Commanders?
We've waited a month.
I know, but the schedule, like the circumstances around it, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm making excuses for him because you're right. Like, they've gotten their ass kicked every which week. We've talked about it here for 5 straight weeks. And, you know, whether it's having Carl Banks on or Adoree Jackson, we've mentioned it to them. It's been embarrassing for the Giants. That is a reflection of the head coach. There's no question about it. However, me personally, and maybe it's just me overlooking this 1 week, I'm not giving him any chance on Sunday night. Whether it's Daniel Jones or Tyrod Taylor, to me, it didn't matter. They're not beating the Buffalo Bills. I mean, should they compete? I guess, but I feel like, you know, the Bills coming off of a loss, right? I mean, you're not a great performance last time out. I feel like, you know, the circumstances with the Giants being banged up to what they are, the season almost for me starts against Washington. Now, if they don't beat Washington, like beat, not compete, beat, then I have a major problem. If they don't beat the Jets or Vegas, you know, and play well in all 3 of those games, whether they lose, you know, I guess you can't hold them to the standards of winning all 3, but if they don't play respectable, competent football in all 3 of those games, different story. And I will admit that my bullish opinion on Daboll after last year is starting to waver a little bit here through the first 5 weeks, but I don't think Sunday night's the fair one to judge him with everything stacked against him again.
And let me ask you this. Who knows more about the Bills on an opposing coaching staff than Brian Daboll?
Well, I mean, he's familiar with the team. Probably not many.
I mean, can you use that to your advantage? I mean, can you go into the fourth quarter and you're still within shouting distance rather than Giant fans just going to sleep and get ready for work Monday morning? I mean, listen. I mean, it's
Bills
almost
are banged up too.
Yeah, they are banged up.
Their
corners out, their linebackers. It's not like I'm getting on the air, Sal, and saying, you know, I need Wagner to hang with a vintage Alabama team.
That's what it feels like, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's looked that way, yeah, no doubt.
Come on.
I mean, I'm asking an NFL team that, you know, has, no matter how they've looked so far, a baseline of talent that if it's deployed properly and they're coached up, don't tell me they can't compete Sunday night. I mean, how much are we lowering the bar?
Well,
Coach them up, Daboll.
You're right, I've lowered the bar here. I will admit, I've lowered the bar. As somebody who came into the season with expectations because of Daboll, right? Because of Daboll and Daniel Jones, I came into the season with the expectations where the Giants were going to close the gap on the Eagles and the Cowboys. And right out of the gate, outside of that opening drive before, you know, they started going backwards there and then the blocked field goal eventually. But during that, I'm thinking, this is great. Giants looking good right down the field. And basically, since that false start, or whatever it was, the hold that set him back. It wasn't a false start.
Yeah, that was a false start.
Right. Thomas, let's set him back big. Then the field goal, block field goal, return. Like, it's all been downhill outside of one half of football for him. And I can't believe that we've even had the conversation of, is this going the way of Joe Judge and some of the others? I'm not there yet. I still believe in Daboll, and I'm going to give him a pass, right or wrong. I don't expect them to do anything Sunday night with no quarterback, no running back, no offensive line.
All right, 877-337-6666. Football Friday here on The Fan. What's going on, everybody? BT and Sal, appreciate you guys rolling with us. I mean, I just got to see something. And by the way, we're talking about Tyrod Taylor like he's some third-string scrub. I mean, he might play a better game than Daniel Jones coming up. Daniel Jones has played 2 playoff games, and Tyrod Taylor's played at least 1. I mean, he's probably the most competent backup in the entire NFL. I'm sorry. I mean, the Giants, there's layers and levels of acceptance of poor performance. I understand they're behind the 8 ball. I got that. I'm not trying to make this more than it is. But, geez, you literally get smashed every single Sunday. And basically every game's been on national TV for the ones that aren't on Sunday. You got to show up and you got to coach them up. You got to. I'm not giving him a pass. I'm sorry. All right, Joe is in Parsippany. What's going on, Joe? How are you today, buddy?
Good, guys. How you doing?
All right, Joe.
Brandon, I totally got to agree with you on this one. I mean, the offense hasn't scored an offensive touchdown in this season, besides the second half. They haven't had a touchdown in 2 games. You got to start putting the blame on Daboll if they don't come out and even compete and have some fight in this game.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to also – sorry.
No. Go ahead, Joe. I'm sorry.
No, and then I also just wanted to say, Brandon, your Jets have to come out with a win to quiet down the Philadelphia fan base. A lot of pressure on you this weekend.
Well, we're going to get to the Jets-Eagles a little bit later. Appreciate that, Joe. I mean, listen, again, back to the perspective. I'm not trying to dilute the details. There are reasons why the Giants have looked so bad. I got that.
That's not just the coach, obviously.
Of course not. Clearly. I don't think Vince Lombardi would have them at 3 or 4 wins. I get that. But you must compete. You must tackle. I mean, there's been things with the Giants so fundamentally broken so far this year. From the outset, I can't help but say, man, I'll just speak for myself. I think I may have overrated this guy. You got to show something, dude.
I can't believe we're at that point, but it's hard to disagree through the first 5 weeks. And to play to your point, like the tackling, unacceptable. The special teams, atrocious. Oof. Like all those things. Forget about just the offensive line play or the fact that the offense can't score. They can't move the football. Forget about all that, which is bad enough. But the other stuff that when you watch this team, you don't feel like they're a well-coached football team. However, I'm going to believe that these first 5 weeks have been an aberration. I'm going to give them a pass, right or wrong, BT. It's impossible for me to fairly judge Daboll in a game where they're going in with their backup quarterback, no offensive line, no star running back. Like, if they compete, I mean, I think he's done a great job in this game. I would expect them to get roasted again, just the same way that they've been. And look, it is the NFL. You're right, but I'm not going to judge him if they do lose this game by 20-plus points.
877-337-6666. Let's jump out to Bayside. Barry's on the Fan with BT and Sal. What's happening, Barry? How are you?
Yo, Sal and BT. Yeah. What up, boys?
What's
Happy
up, Barry?
Friday. Listen, man, Daboll, the Giants are such a fiasco that he needs to be under some pressure. They don't coach him up. The offense is like a high school offense. It's like every team has offensive line woes and issues, but they could put points on the board. It's the modern day NFL, and it's like, what a fiasco. And this game, I feel like they're going to get rolled. However, the next 6 games is where they got to show me something that he could coach and they could keep up.
See,
with
that
these
I agree
other
with.
Lesser teams.
I agree with that point, Barry. I just. And I get, like, BT, I get what you're saying. There's no way you could defend Brian Daboll other than just saying, well, look what he did a year ago. Let's not be overreacting here to just 5 games. And if you take actually all things into account, the fact that they don't have enough talent as it is, the schedule was brutal, The offensive line's banged up. They don't have enough talent as it is, so they can't overcome those type of injuries. No Saquon Barkley, and now no Daniel Jones, most likely Sunday night. I just don't know what you expect. I'm expecting them to get blown out. If they do anything better than that, it's a good sign. But I do believe that after this week, after Sunday night, now it's on. I don't give a crap who the quarterback is, what the offensive line is. You need to figure out a way to beat some of these teams coming up.
877-337-6666 is BT and Sal inside of our Town Fair Tire studio. Friends at Town Fair remind you that you always get the guaranteed lowest price on name brand tires from Connecticut to Maine. Nobody beats Town Fair Tire. Nobody. Amin is in Parsippany. What's cooking, buddy? How are you?
Hey, I'm well. Thanks, fellas. Great
Awesome.
listening to you guys. Love the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Amin. What's up?
I personally think it's more of an indictment on Joe Shane versus Daboll. And the reason why I say that is if you look at the way Daboll likes to call his offense, we got Jalen Hyatt, a guy that we invested a high draft pick on, a guy that needs time to get down the field, and yet we have an offensive line that's depleted. And I get with injuries, never predict injuries, but the lack of depth on the offensive line right now, we're bringing a guy like Justin Pugh off the street and hoping that this guy can suit up just to have enough linemen to play a game. I think going into this game Sunday night, I'd like to see a competitive team. October 13th, right? Today, it's my birthday.
Happy birthday.
All right.
Thanks, fellas. I
Happy
appreciate
birthday,
that.
buddy. How old, Amin?
I'm 34 years old.
It's a young man, young buck over there, Sal.
Yeah.
Young buck.
Jealous.
Yeah.
Me too.
Feeling old, though, these
Well,
days
yeah.
with the Giants, right? But back to I use it as like a benchmark usually, and typically these past few years, come my birthday, the season's over.
Okay.
Last year was a bit of a change, and I thought we were headed in the right direction. I still think we are headed in the right direction. Daboll and Shane last year, if you recall, with the success, kind of tempered expectations a bit. They said, look, yes, we had some success. We can win and rebuild at the same time, which I think we're seeing. The issue right now, though, is the construct of this roster. And one thing I heard Joe from Parsippany say, he mentioned something about a lack of leadership. I think that goes to the core issue. I mean, you got guys with the Dory Jackson, a guy that might be moved by the trade deadline. Who's he to come in and say who the leadership is when a guy might end up getting moved and then you're void of any leadership? So I think it's more of a Shane issue. I'd just like to see the guys galvanize, show some heart, and show up Sunday night on national television and show that you guys actually care.
That's the point, dude. And by the way, have a really great birthday. That's the point. You can't just show up there for the entire world to watch you get your brains busted every time you play football. Listen, I really like him, Bob. I've known Carl for a long time. We're getting to know Dory Jackson. I'm tired of I don't want to say excuses, but the contextualization of this slop. It doesn't matter anymore. It's not a game or two. It's a month and a half, basically. So when we talk to Carl, when we talk to Dory Jackson, hey, you're not telling me anything that's making me feel better about the situation. I will say this, Sal. The performance by Daboll and the Giants a year ago, honestly, does complicate my ability to assess who or how I really view Daboll in totality, because it was so good last year. So I've got to be fair, and I'm trying to be.
And he did a lot with a little. That's the point.
Yes, there was absolute overachievement, execution. They were buttoned up. They were, no doubt, they were really dialed into the fundamentals. But the flip side is, if I didn't know about last year, and I'm watching the Giants this year, this is Rich Kotite level. Let's call this for what it is. This is Ray Handley stuff. This is the lowest of the low that we've ever seen a New York football team look for 5 weeks.
Like Adam Gase low?
Lower, dude. Adam Gase won 7 games his first year.
Yeah, well, his first year. What did he do second
Well,
year?
I think it was 2 wins,
Yeah.
But yeah. But the point is, but there were games that Gase lost that were competitive. This is non-competitive, and that is unacceptable.
I'm with you after Sunday night. Then to me, the bullseye is on Daboll. And for the record, I'm going to stand by what I said. I'm not going to waver on this, because then you start getting in I believe in him, and then after 5 weeks, you don't believe in him, and I don't want to go back and forth. I believe in Brian Daboll. That is my opinion. It's definitive. It is decided. I believe he's going to get this thing turned around to a respectable level. Just not Sunday night. After that is the stretch that, to me, he's going to be evaluated on.
Let's get, how about Josh up in Yonkers on the fan with BT and Sal? Josh, what's going on, buddy? Football Friday, how are you?
What's up, guys? I'm doing great. Love
Nice.
the show. Listen every day.
Thank you.
Sal, I totally agree with you. I believe in Daboll. I just think that last year was a different football season. He won Coach of the Year, not Coach of the Century, not Coach of the Decade, Coach of the Year. He did some stuff with a random assortment of players that no names, guys coming off the practice field. And I got to put some blame, like Amin said, on Joe Shane. He cherry-picked this team, and there's no chemistry. They didn't play all preseason. They played one drive in the offseason.
Well, that's not Joe Shane's fault. Wait, hold on. That's not Joe. The player
No, that's
picking.
not. No.
Okay.
No, I agree. What I mean to say is, I'm in a band, right?
Yeah.
And when you're in a band, you got to have chemistry. You can have someone fill in for you, but it's going to be weird. You might stumble. You might fall. It's not going to gel.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what we're seeing here is they just cherry-picked all these people from all across the league, and they're just not gelling. And I do put the blame on Daboll for not playing his preseason, but that's also where the league is going, which I just completely disagree with. And I think Nick Sirianni said, I'm playing my starters next year. I think all the coaches have to adopt that. It's not fun to watch.
I think
stringers go up, and then for the next 5 weeks, your team just look like crap.
yes, but a lot of teams are dealing with that there, Josh, and I do think that's a different point, and I don't think that you're entirely wrong. I mean, there's a lot of rust for a lot of these teams that enter the season because nobody plays.
Right.
I don't attribute the way the Giants look to rust. I attribute it to Daboll not doing a good job, a lack of talent. There's a lot of injuries.
Right.
But Daboll's got to be better.
All
I'm
right.
sorry. He's got to be better.
Understood. I'm not going to disagree with that. I just don't think it's fair to say this week in a spot where basically all odds are against him. Now, look, the great ones figure out a way, right? Go compete in a game. Crazier things have happened, but this is like...
So you think it's unrealistic for me to expect the Giants to lose by 7, 10 points?
Well, you make it like they get blown out every game.
No, they do.
No, they didn't in San Francisco. Like that was that game was more competitive than you thought. Early fourth quarter, they still had a shot, even with everything against them.
I think the 49ers stayed on the first page of the playbook. They're like, we don't even have to do anything to win.
Maybe, but they played a competitive 3 quarters in a game where, look, the Cowboys didn't compete. They got their asses kicked by the Niners.
Yeah.
Giants were more competitive than that. Even the Miami game, I thought it would be worse last Sunday. Now, it wasn't pretty, but I thought it'd be worse. And you could say, well, yeah, Tua was just throwing the football all over the place, which he did. He handed it to the Giants basically twice. But still, I mean, the game wasn't as bad as I thought that it would be. If I had to place the levels of blame, first, lack of talent. Second, the injuries they've ravaged this team. And then third, Daboll has got to take some of the hits.
But he's not going to pass. He's third for you. He's not going to pass, though.
He's not getting a pass, and he will come under fire to me if they don't play well against Washington, the Jets, and the Raiders.
877-337-6666. I do find it really interesting. And listen, he was amazing last year. And I do think that he can be here for a long time and be really good. But I can't just keep kicking this down the road. You got to show something, man. This is not high school. This is not Pee Wee. This is the NFL. The Giants look like an expansion team. And Brian Daboll's the coach.